Hi everyone, welcome. In preparation for feeding this bin, I was putting together some notes for us, information about the bin's age, the number of feedings it's gotten, the estimated worm count, and then on the way downstairs I accidentally pressed the reset button, click, and erased the whole thing. So I'm going to be going off memory today. I'm not going to go upstairs to rewrite the board. But some of the numbers are easy. 180 days of age. Worm count, I think, was 1471, and I'm pretty sure it was 12 days since we last checked in on these guys. So I'm going to get these guys up on the bench, and I got some yummy foods for them. Let's get started. I spent some time earlier preparing shredded paper and cardboard combined with leaves and dampness to make my prepared bedding, so I've got a whole restock on that, as well as a few sheets of newspaper. And if you recently watched one of my videos where I was tending to my African night crawlers, you'll notice it's got a very similar fast food establishment bag as a covering. Sometimes makes me wonder if I should flip the covering on one of these containers at some point just to help distinguish it from the other system. I guess we could do it here if we wanted to, if we remember. So let's set that thing aside. If we remember to flip it, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. Looks like some of these top covering papers that we've been using here are holding up pretty good. In my systems where I'm covering with plastic and the moisture recirculates a lot more, I notice a lot more deterioration of the top covering papers. But in these systems where I'm covering only with paper, where the top surface gets a little bit drier, it seems like some of these top covering papers don't get quite as much attention as they could. So that coffee filter I just removed indicates to us where we last fed, right down the middle over here. I glanced at the video from that last feeding 12 days ago. It was a bunch of cantaloupe and watermelon rinds. And after 12 days, I'm assuming we're not going to see much, if any, of that. Sometimes cantaloupe rinds do stick around, actually. They're sort of a tougher material. So maybe we'll bump into some of that. Let's probe down the middle. I guess some of this dry stuff I collected, we can dump it down in the middle too. Sitting out on the surface, being dry, doesn't get it anywhere. So we'll see if we can help it make up some time by moving it down to where the food's going to be placed in. Okay. So many castings. I guess what I'm curious of is leftovers. I guess in addition to the melon rinds, we must have also fed a half of an apple, which I kind of forgot about. And it does look like, to a certain degree, it's getting some interest. Oops. Wow. Actually, if you peel some of this, yeah, wow. A little bit of the peel, I just pull it back, and the worms are actually mobbing this thing. And so many little tiny ones, too. Check that out. Wow, I could tell you a large portion of what I'm holding here is not even apple anymore, it's just worm. Because I could feel the whole thing deforming in my hand as parts of it tries to get out of the light, or maybe senses that it's being held, wants to get out of my hands, or whatever's happening here. I think we'll cut them a break and just sort of take that really mobbed end of it and place it face down into this pile of stuff. We're going to sink down low into the feeding area, but that was kind of fun. I came in here thinking, you know, melon rinds, we're not going to see anything in here. We're going to just see maybe some moisture left behind by the worms, maybe a little bit of cantaloupe rind I expected. Maybe even a little bit of bedding, which we're not seeing much of either. Just that little bit of a surprise. Alright, that was kind of interesting. I wonder if we left ourselves any other little interesting surprises over on this side. Nope, there's some cantaloupe rind. Is that right? Yep, definitely. Other than that, it's just a bunch of worms. Alright, I think we're almost ready to feed. We'll let these little guys get settled in, and then we could start getting them set up with a nice feeding. Oh geez, step away for a second. It seems like these guys avalanched the entire side of the hole back in. Come on guys, give me a break. I'm trying to increase the size of your space here for you. Hopefully they'll appreciate being given a little bit more bedding material to roam around in. I'm going to go big. It's like what I've been doing in a lot of my systems. I'm just going to go really big on this feeding area. My idea was to kind of do a little something I haven't done in a while. I was doing it for a while. I was taking the foods that they got, and when it was small particle matter foods like what I'm feeding here today, I would be able to take some of the food and try to make like a little dumpling out of it. So I would grab a handful of food like this, and that would become like one little dumpling, and I guess we can make 4 of them because I tore this paper into 4 more or less even segments. And we'll leave that one with enough in it so that it can count as a packed dumpling. So I'll take half, stuff this one, and before we seal each of these up, we can spike them all so that they've got even more goodness to them. So in can come my little supply of bedding here. Oops. I spilled some. I'm sure the worms won't mind. So we're going to stuff some in that dumpling. We'll put some into this dumpling. And I think I need another handful. Oops, I dropped more. Sorry. No, if you you know, were to judge this material that we just examined here, you would have to agree with me that it's almost devoid of bedding at this point. I mean, some of the stuff we encountered was probably stuff that was just left over a little bit from the last time we fed. So now we've got this really scrumptious apple that's kind of an unusual outcome, at least for me, because I usually don't see that much action on apples. So for me, that's a little bit of an exciting twist. Watch me go back and review the video, and it's going to turn out that this was like a piece of something other than apple, because I can't even tell. That's one of the other amazing things about some of the foods you give the worms. You could be holding something in your hand, and you can't even tell what it is after the worms have gotten on it. But I'm not done yet, because on top of all this, we can sprinkle in some of my pulverized eggshell grit, which is just something that helps the worms break their foods down as part of their digestion process. And then I've also got this pulverized combination of seeds and grains and nuts and beans, whatever, anything I have around that's kind of dry and that I can put into my little blender. I turn it into this interesting worm chow concoction for them. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. My only other thought here was that the general moisture content in here kind of low, almost dry, because we put in some frozen veggies. They'll kick off a bit of moisture, I believe, but just to play it safe, since we are covering on this system with paper only, I think we're going to dampen the stuff here. My prepared bedding is pretty damp, and you know, those veggies as they thaw, they're going to release moisture too. I guess it was just these larger pieces of newspaper that seemed to me like they would probably benefit from getting a little bit of extra moisture. And even some of that dry stuff that we collected in the beginning, I believe did we? Or did I forget? I don't know, I can't remember anymore. At this point it doesn't really matter too much. I don't have to go overboard. I just wanted to make sure I've applied a little bit of moisture to complement that somewhat dry feeding. I don't know, my systems do pretty good in the summertime. And even some of them are left uncovered, you know, and they don't dry out. Oops, here's a little piece of veggie that fell out. So I'm trying to get accustomed to varying the coverings on my systems to suit the specific needs. Always prepared to change it regardless of what's going on, just to adapt to what the systems really need. And I think I've been doing an okay job of it. Most of the material in most of my systems is nice and crumbly, just like this. And I think I forgot to totally forgot about that stuff we were hoping to integrate into the feeding area. You know, before we, yeah, let's do this really quick too. Before we pack this system away, it's always fun to check out the outer limits. We just got done feeding the middle where the feedings have been. This is where you would expect to see a lot of worms, but for some reason the outer edges on some systems are often just as heavily, if not more, populated. So let's just see if we can create a little worm party. Hopefully I don't trigger some sort of a massive exodus or riot. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a worm sighting here so we can play it back fast. That's always fun to watch, and then we'll pack it up here. Alright, I think we're in a position now where we can just level off the material. Hopefully we keep the feeding area neatly submerged down the middle with enough stuff topping it off so it doesn't become exposed. Although, I guess if any of it became exposed, I think for the most part all you would see at this point is just some paper sticking out of the top. And even if any of that food that we just gave them were to become exposed to the surface, most of it just looked like, you know, the types of vegetables that go into a soup or something. Nothing that's going to emit any sort of, you know, sweet scent or anything like that, or attract pests. But I've been pretty lucky lately, knock on wood. Pests have been at bay for the most part, not bothering my wormies lately, and hopefully it stays that way. So we're going to bring back this old coffee filter to indicate to ourselves that we fed down the middle again like we usually do in here. And this top covering paper is pretty cool too. And like I said earlier, if we were covering with plastic, creating sort of that humidity zone beneath itself, we'd have, you know, a lot more wear and tear showing up on this top covering paper. But since they're only getting paper coverings like this, the top surface gets a little bit dry, maybe a little bit neglected, but I really like the texture of the material. I know that I just compensated with a good bit of water going in here. So hopefully we have a situation here where the moisture level stays as is, and we'll take it from there. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. We're pretty much at the end here. The only stuff I've got left to do are pretty boring things like getting stuff cleaned up and put away. I'll take care of that when I'm done filming, but before I go, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.